Now, that's on par with one of Senator Rand Paul's legendary exchanges with Dr. Fauci. Let's go down memory lane. You might remember this.
The point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2. That's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well, wait a minute.
It did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator.
All right, here now with reaction, he is the author of Deception, the great COVID cover-up. That is Senator Rand Paul, great state of Kentucky. Now, in the early months of the pandemic, Senator Fauci expressed he wasn't convinced the COVID-19 virus was spread as a result of a lab link. Now, in the earliest months in January, aren't there emails that you've written about, talked about, that show just the opposite, that they were in a panic, that number one, they may have funded it, number two, they knew gain of function research took place and coronavirus research took place, and that they may have funded it?
Yeah, one of the very frightened emails he gets from an assistant in January of 2020 is an assistant saying, "Oh my goodness, this is gain of function research we funded." This is from his assistant. This is gain of function research that we funded, but I don't know how that could have happened because it never went before the safety committee. So, yes, they knew very, very quickly, and they were worried about guilt. They were worried about culpability. They're worried that anybody's hands that touched the money, anybody who approved the money going to Wuhan, would ultimately get blamed. So Fauci actually organized a paper called Proximal Origins. He had 5 virologists write the paper. Most of them were well rewarded with large grants. Christian Anderson got a $9 million grant about a month after this. Meanwhile, all of these people were privately saying, "Oh my goodness, it looks like it was manipulated." But publicly, they were saying it's a conspiracy theory. They went to Facebook, they suppressed it. They told Facebook, suppress the story of anything coming from the lab. It's all conspiracy theory. So in no way was Fauci ever objective. Fauci leaned in on this. He pressed hard, and he used his 40 years worth of accumulated power to try to suppress any story that this came from the lab.
And anybody that disagreed was labeled a conspiracy theorist. But how soon into the pandemic do you believe Dr. Fauci knew that, in fact, it was gain of function, it happened in the Wuhan lab, and it happened with American taxpayer dollars? What do the emails show you?
January 27th, there's emails starting at 6 o'clock. They're going across the ocean to Jeremy Farrar in England and back. They go on till 3 in the morning. At 3 in the morning, Anthony Fauci sends an email to the head of the safety committee. The head of the safety committee should have seen this research, but never did. And he sends him an email saying, "Hey, nothing to see here. Here's a paper that says in all likelihood this came from animals, not from the lab." Why is he sending that to the head of the safety committee? Because the safety committee was never allowed to review this. For 3 years, I've been asking the NIH for the deliberations. If this is not gain of function, I want to see the discussion between the scientists. Fauci says all the scientists up and down, they all said it wasn't gain of function. Let me see the deliberations. I want to see the arguments for and against. They won't reveal this. They are tighter-lipped than the CIA on this, and the NIA has resisted really requests from Democrats and Republicans. The Democrat chair of my committee has co-signed this request. It's over a year old, and my individual requests are 3 years old. They have resisted, they have obscured, and according to Fauci's assistant that he threw under the bus today, David Morenz, according to him, it was a targeted cover-up and that they destroyed emails and evidence. But today, the most shocking and surprising thing was Anthony Fauci threw David Morenz, a 20-year assistant, under the bus and acted as if he'd hardly ever met him. He wasn't part of the inner circle. He never made decisions, had no access to my office, all completely the opposite of what David Morenz says.
Is this the same assistant that sent that email? Oh my God, this is gain of function?
Different assistant, but David Morenz worked for 20 years for Anthony Fauci. He's called the special advisor to the head of the agency, which Anthony Fauci is. But today, Anthony Fauci could not run fast enough. And the real question is this. If we were to get a prosecutor someday, maybe a new presidential administration, that asks David Morenz under oath and says you're going to be punished for destroying records, you may see prison time, would you be willing to give us the full story on what Anthony Fauci knew and when he knew it? I think there's a great deal to be had, but I think one of the reasons Morenz is the fall guy here, and they've chosen him as the fall guy, he's been paid for over a year not to work. So he's on paid leave for over a year, maybe 2 years now from the NIH. They've never made decisions on him.
Well, let me ask you this. The NIH recently finally admitted taxpayers funded gain of function. Okay. Now we're learning that NIH scientists received $710 million in royalties from drug makers of the during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's just breaking, Senator. What should the American people know about that?
I think when you have a drug company that makes a vaccine like Moderna, and I know of at least one payment of $450 million in sharing the proceeds of the vaccine, you have to wonder how anybody at the NIH could be objective. So if Moderna has a new drug, how can they be objective when they've just received $450 million from the company? So it really is a situation, it's a revolving door between Big Pharma and the government. Somebody's got to put an end to it, and I hope the next president will.
Deception, the great COVID cover-up. You were way ahead of the curve, Senator. I wish more people had listened to you about this, the origins of COVID, NIH spending, also something called natural immunity. Nobody wanted to listen to you, but you were right. Senator, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.